Good morning, everyone, and thank you for joining us. We're thrilled to have so many business owners and business advisors with us this morning to learn about the importance of cybersecurity. As small business owners, you have a lot of responsibilities, from continually working to sell your product or service, to meeting profitability targets, retaining and attracting employees, as well as keeping your customers happy. We know you have a lot to deal with on a daily basis. That doesn't leave a lot of time to focus on your company's protection from cyber and fraud attacks. Unfortunately, it's something we must focus on and feel like this next hour can really help you better protect your business and employees. A majority of the nation's small business owners, in fact, 78%, say one of their biggest concerns is the threat of cyber attack, according to a new survey data released by the New Jersey-based Provident Bank. Business owners are taking cyber threats more seriously, and in looking forward to the next 12 months, 3 in 10 survey respondents said it's very likely their business will experience a cyber attack or cybersecurity breach, compared to just 11% who said it was not likely. 7 in 10 small business owners said that addressing a cyber attack or breach was part of their business continuity plan. However, just half said they're actually fully prepared to face a cyber attack on their organization. So in a recent Forbes.com article, it validated these concerns, as 2 of every 3 small to medium-sized businesses experienced some type of cyber attack in the last 12 months. This same article stated cyber criminals could penetrate the networks of more than 90% of companies, gaining access to local network resources and potentially sensitive data. It's our goal to be the best bank for your business, and we believe that sharing our resources with you is one of the best ways we can do that, especially as it relates to protecting your business from fraud. So let's get started first by welcoming our speakers from the Pennsylvania Office of the Attorney General. First up is Supervisory Special Agent James McDonald. He's a military veteran who served during the First Gulf War with expertise and training in electronic warfare. After leaving active duty, he served over 20 years as an FBI special agent, managing highly sensitive and sophisticated investigations, as well as digital forensics programs. After retiring from the FBI, he joined the Pennsylvania Office of the Attorney General, where he currently is the supervisor of their computer forensic unit. John Affronti is the Director of Technology for the Pennsylvania Office of Attorney General. In that role, he oversees the IT infrastructure and the operations team, the applications development team, and the litigation support section. Prior to working at the office, or the Attorney General's office, John worked for the Philadelphia District Attorney as a project manager, and later as the Assistant Director of Technology. While at the DA's office, he also worked part-time in the evenings as an adjunct professor at Harcum College, teaching classes in business and computers. Before his career in the world of law enforcement technologies, John worked for many years in the private wealth and insurance industries in and around New York City. John received his Bachelor of Science degree from Fordham University in the Bronx and completed his MBA with a concentration in finance and a secondary focus on competitive strategy from the University of Florida. John Nestor, our third speaker, was born and raised on a farm in central PA. There he learned a steadfast work ethic and the ability to multitask under pressure. His first career was working with automobiles, where he rose to the rank of master mechanic. In his early 30s, John went back to school and completed his associate's degree in network administration. Since then, John has spent the last 20 years working for the Pennsylvania Office of the Attorney General. He's been the manager of IT infrastructure and operations for the past 10 years. Our speakers are going to help us understand what's happening in the industry and marketplace as far as cybercrime. With that, I'm going to turn it over to Supervisory Special Agent McDonald. Welcome, Agent McDonald.
Thank you. Let me share my screen here. It doesn't want to share right away here. Should have been ready for this. Can everybody see that?
Yes.
Okay. Well, thank you. Sorry for that short delay again. My name is Supervisor Special Agent James McDonald. I am the current supervisor of the Computer Forensic Unit for the Pennsylvania Office of the Attorney General. Just a brief introduction to the Attorney General. Obviously, you know, that is Josh Shapiro. He's the top law enforcement official for the state of Pennsylvania with a wide range of responsibilities, with our ultimate goal is to protect and serve the citizens and agencies of the Commonwealth. We're staffed by several hundred prosecutors, attorneys, investigators, agents, and various support personnel and locations across the whole state of Pennsylvania, and divided into 4 sections: the criminal law, the public protection division, the civil division, and operations division. We work closely with all levels of law enforcement, state, federal, and local, and we're on many task force to combine our capabilities with the ultimate goal is to protect our citizens and fight crime in Pennsylvania. So again, my job is the supervisor, and I've been working in the computer forensic field for almost 25 years. And obviously there's been a lot of changes and stuff and technology over those years as technology gets integrated into our lives. And what that does is makes our job in computer forensics that much harder as technology gets better, encryption gets better, hard drives get larger, and the ability for us to go in there and try to find information is harder and harder. And I'm just going to talk briefly about some of the capabilities and what we do in investigations. But if you remember anything from my short talk about it, is if you can think of, remember these 2 things. If you think a crime has been committed, please get law enforcement involved early, whether that's your state, local, it might be a good place to start, or if it's, you know, big, the Attorney General, the FBI, as digital evidence can be easily destroyed, even inadvertently, you know, logs go away fairly quickly. So we may only have one chance to try to get that information. So please get us involved early. We don't provide updates. I know it might be embarrassing or hurt the bottom line as far as whether you're hacked and stuff, but we don't provide any information to the press, the general public. And the second thing, I know Chris talked about it, a business, you know, have a disaster recovery plan, whatever you call it, business continuity plan and stuff, because, and hopefully that includes backing up your data, because, you know, disasters can happen all the time, whether they're natural, you know, fires and floods and stuff, or man-made, whether those intentional, just, you know, deleting information or accidents, or even criminals out there trying to get to your information. So those 2 things, if you do those 2 things, you're ahead of the game and stuff. So, okay, principles of digital forensics here. Again, the key part of this slide is that the job of any digital forensic examiner is we're going to now analyze data. In our case, it's analyzing digital evidence, and the goal of that is to provide analysis for legal purposes. And how we do that is, you know, we're looking for 3 things. Did a crime occur? And if possible, if it did occur, can we figure out who did it? And was anybody else involved? And how we do that is we examine evidence. We examine, in our case, we examine digital evidence. We administer a bunch of tests and stuff. In our case, that's our forensic software. So we go through theirs. We have a lot of different software products that are out there. We have to get trained on it. And they do a lot of different things depending on if it's, you know, a Macintosh system, a Windows system, or a Unix system, and then all the other different types of devices that we'll talk about here. So next slide here. These are the type of digital evidence that we see all the time here. At the beginning ones, you'll see, you know, the common ones that have been around for a while, desktop computers, you know, all different kinds we talked about, and then all the storage capability that's in there, and the networks. And both John, Nestor, and John Affronte will talk about network security and stuff. But the bottom 5 there are stuff that's really starting to expand a lot over the years. Mobile devices. I mean, probably the majority of our examinations now are mobile devices, smartphones that are out there. I mean, because you can do everything on your smartphone. You can do chats, you can do email, you can surf the internet, and you can do exactly the same things you can do on a computer. Everybody has one, and most people have multiple ones now and stuff. So those are an important part, and we do those all the time. Video surveillance, video and audio systems, video systems, and I have a separate slide on that. That is being a big part in a lot of investigations. One of the new areas that we're starting to see more and more is vehicle systems. You know, these telematic systems that are inside that. And I have a slide that will talk basically a little bit about that. Smart devices at home now. A lot of people have Alexa and Google Home devices out there, and those things are recording all the time. So if you have one, just be careful. But all the other smart devices out there, I mean, you can log into your home internet and turn on your coffee machine. You can set your crock pot to go on. And lastly on there is the gaming systems. Obviously, those are the big gaming systems, and people use them to play with friends and stuff, but they also have the ability to communicate. So we've had a case where terrorist groups were using one of these gaming systems to communicate. I think there's less, for us, there's less logging capabilities out there and a little less capability by us to monitor them and stuff. So we're trying to enhance our capability in that area. We talked about these video surveillance systems. They're playing pretty much a bigger part in every type of investigation we do. You know, the top left there, the cameras that are all over the place. People have them as Ring doorbell cameras. You have them outside your home. In the city of Philadelphia, they're on almost every street light out there. So we collect a lot of video data, large amounts of stuff. To the right there, obviously body-worn cameras by police officers show interaction with the public, and we've done a lot of analysis of that. People are now putting cameras on their bottom right for their cars just to see what's happening. And then finally, the bottom left, you know, cell phones. Cell phones are being used all the time. People are capturing video anytime something's happening. Obviously, you saw the many videos from the recent mass shootings out there. But that's good information for investigations for us. They all store data digitally, and with our software and our training, we have the capability to make enhancements to some of that video, whether that's for identifying people, license plates, or other type of activity. And I talked about audio also. We have an audio enhancement capability where we can, you know, sometimes, you know, eliminate some of the background noise if you can't hear different voices and stuff on there and stuff. So it's one of the other capabilities we have. And I did talk about the telematics systems, probably the hottest topic in computer forensics now, especially with the dramatic increase in car thefts. I'm in the Philadelphia area, so we're on a stolen car task force. We have federal, state, and local there just because these cars are getting stolen all the time and trying to identify information. So we have the ability to take the telematic systems out there. It captures a variety of information, the stuff you would think about: location, speed, braking, obviously the GPS information if it's on there. If the phone's been connected, we can see if they made any phone calls out there. And we actually used this in a recent case one time. It was a gang drug case with a shooting. Did analysis of the car telematic systems and showed the car stopped at the intersection where the shooting occurred, showed the two back doors open up and then close, and then a short time later drive away and stuff. So doesn't prove anyone got out of the car, but it is very useful information, and it might be helpful to corroborate in a case. So this is why our job is so hard, just because of the complexity of digital evidence. You know, encryption is getting harder and harder. You know, passwords, and you as a bank and stuff know that it's very important to password protect, encrypt your data and stuff also. But the criminals are using this also. They're compressing their data, they're hiding it in different spaces. So that's why we have to continually keep up on technology. Computer forensics versus mobile forensics. Again, mobile forensics are a little different now, just because to do an examination of a mobile phone, the phone has to be on. And in the older days, phones had limited amount of storage capability, so you could be destroying data while you're doing it. Now, even mobile phones are getting larger and larger. All the Android devices, you have the capability to put, you know, micro SD cards in there that can be, I don't know, there's probably a 1 terabyte micro SD card now. So there's a whole lot of data. And I believe in the new iPhone has 1 terabyte of data in it now. So unique challenges out there that, you know, keep our job interesting and keep us going through here. So I'm just trying to think what our slides here. Just one example about us and how a forensic examiner can get themselves in trouble. If anybody remembers this case, is from a couple of years back. It was Casey Anthony. I was with the FBI at this time and doing some of the same type of examinations. She was accused of killing her 2-year-old daughter. A forensic examiner, not from the FBI, was a local examiner, did examination of her internet history back then. So even back then, they were doing that. And Casey Anthony was, I think, drugged with chloroform. So during the examination of her computer, it showed that the person, and we don't and you can't prove who did this search. There was a search in internet history for the term chloroform. The expert testified in court that someone using that computer searched 84 times for that term. And to me, that would show that that person really was interested in finding that, was doing a lot of research, and could show a state of mind and stuff. But the software developer at the time was watching the trial on TV, notified the prosecution that the examiner actually was he misidentified the analysis, and there was only really one visit to the site with one search. Pretty big deal. It still might be important for the case, but the prosecution failed to disclose that originally, which prosecution, we have an obligation to provide any information that we found, both exculpable or inculpable, and it really was a big deal for that case. I think she was ultimately found guilty, but this is a good example of we really need to understand the tools because they can be very important. Just finish up with a couple of major threats to businesses and stuff, the ones that I've seen over the years and stuff. Obviously, phishing emails are a big thing, and this is a slide that I didn't come up with, but I like to send out. And most of the stuff in here is pretty common sense information, but it's good to go over it. And hopefully as a business, just reinforcing this with training to individuals and stuff, because a lot of this stuff was important back then, but even the criminals are getting better now. Checking for spelling, yes, or grammar and stuff. Yeah, that's important. That was very prevalent in the early days of internet, but they're even getting better at that, and they're getting better at hiding their emails and making it really think that it's coming from your bank. Hey, we need to verify your account information. Can you put it in? And they're getting better and better at that. So just be careful of that, and it might be a good way to, good idea to keep providing training to your individual. Ransomware attacks, obviously this goes back to one of my original statements in, have a disaster recovery plan and stuff, have a backup of your data and stuff. I was called in to help Souderton School District. Their whole system was down and stuff, the emails, all student grades and stuff. And obviously the individuals wanted a large amount of Bitcoin to get there and stuff. So it didn't turn out well for them. And if they had a backup, they could have gone to that. And the last one here is just, intellectual property lost is the case that I helped a few years back in, and just kind of goes to show that insider threat, it's really hard to protect yourself against someone who has access to this information. So if you have your logging set up and you're keeping an eye on information that's going in and out, you have practices in there that you can at least maybe help mitigate that some. I believe that's all the slides I have. We'll hold questions to the end there. Let me stop sharing there, and I'll let Mr. Affronte go with next. So John, you want to start your screen now?
Yep, thank you very much. Let me share this up here. There we go. Well, thank you again, everyone, for joining us today. We appreciate you giving us a few minutes to speak with you all. As JP indicated, there's a lot of stuff out there these days. Businesses, as Chris had said, are being constantly hammered at. The attackers are becoming more and more sophisticated. As you heard in my bio, I used to work in finance, or private wealth management specifically, and insurance. And I can tell you, even back in 2014, 2015, those years, they were already really getting great at the emails, that it was getting harder and harder as a bank to know when your clients' email accounts had been compromised. So it really, they are getting better at what they do. They're getting more sophisticated. And unfortunately, while we all love to work with the best security tools in the world, and we have many of them in my agency, and we always are trying to get better, there's an old joke in the computer and IT field that you have an issue with your end user calls in, and you're trying to figure out what went wrong, and you might start checking maybe at your server first, and then you check between the server and the firewall or the router and the computer and what's plugged in and what's not plugged in. And we find 9 times out of 10, the original issue started somewhere between, as we always joke, the keyboard and the chair. So it's oftentimes not problems of zeros and ones. It's a problem of someone, people are fallible. We're all fallible, including my IT staff. Sometimes that error that occurred was between a keyboard and chair, but it wasn't between the end user's keyboard and chair. Maybe it was the guy working on my firewall. Maybe it was something like that. So we often say that that's the one thing that you really have to look at when you're looking at these things from the top line, is how are you going to protect yourself from, as JP was talking about, the insider threats. Well, that can be a malicious actor, or that can just be a person being a person. So I've tried to keep this, my part of this, mostly on cyber hygiene, and some of the, as I always put it, and I'll advance my slide here, some of the biggest bang for your buck sort of things. We, about 18 months into the pandemic, our different systems that John will talk a little bit about, our behavioral systems, started going nuts. They started screaming at us, waving at us, yelling at us in the IT department. Somebody clicked something, we stopped it. Somebody clicked something, we stopped it. And it turns out someone had gotten a list of emails and was spamming us with spoofs of other emails. So they would make it look like John Nestor was sending you an email, but if you looked closely, it was an outside email address, but it looked very close to John Nestor's email address, or it looked, and they just kept hammering at people and seeing the things that were getting picked up and the subject lines. And they just, I don't know if it was an algorithm or a bot, or if there was a human being on the other side, but they were getting better and better. And it was driving us nuts because it was the middle of the pandemic and people already make mistakes in normal days. But we're all busy. We were even more busy. We're all multitasking even more. But now people were at home. They were extra distracted. They were more likely to be looking at the email on their phone. They weren't looking at it on a big computer screen where it jumped out at you that that wasn't the right email address. So what we found was a very simple solution, but it immediately stopped the problem, was adding this simple little thing on the screen there that cautioned this email originated from outside of the organization. Do not click the links or attachments. All of a sudden, somebody looks in and goes, wait, it's John Nestor. Why is he sending that to me? And then they look closely and they realize it's not John Nestor. It's not the person on your team. It's someone else who's impersonating them. So we did that. And we also actually had our Exchange admin put in a rule so that when it came in from the outside, it also added to the top line subject, the first word in the subject would become external. So when you're quickly scrolling on your phone, you immediately saw this as external. And it was a silly thing. It cost us very little money to do, but it actually really did help us tremendously. So going along that same line, passwords, as it says there, they're still the key, but it's more so now than ever and for different reasons. So I won't bore you all to death with all of the details of how attacks happen, but the bottom line is, the original way people would compromise your password was what was called brute force. They would literally start and do 11111, 11112, 1113, 1114. And as computers got faster and faster, that became more and more successful because they could have algorithms do that for them. So we made passwords bigger, we made them more complex, and that helped to get us away from the brute force stuff. Well, then the attackers realized that. So they realized also that with that, people have problems remembering those bigger, longer passwords. So they start to use words. So they move to what's known as a rainbow table attack, in which they take combinations of words and numbers that are commonly put together, and they would brute force with those. So there's no longer a nonsense word. They would only use words like spring and the numbers 2022 and things like that. And they would just put the two together, and that was how they brute forced. Well, password locking helped to get rid of a lot of that, because now it can only try 5 times before your password locks out, for your login locks them out. And then they got someone, unfortunately smart for all of us, realized that you just need to flip the whole thing on its ear. And they started doing what's called a spray attack. So now what they do is they gather a list of all of the email addresses or all of the login credential accounts for your system. And they no longer hit my account 100 times or 1,000,000 times. They hit my account with spring 2022. Then they hit John Nestor with spring 2022. And they go and they go and they go and they go until they get that one person who was lazy and used Spring 2022. And the key there is they're not going to lock my account because they're going to go across a million different logins on 20 different companies, and they're going to hit them 1, 2, 3, 4. By the time they get back to me, I've already logged in and put in the right password. So it's not going to see 2 incorrect logins in a row because they're going around robbing around. So those sorts of attacks are making it incredibly important that we don't use something that you might guess, because if they can guess it, they're going to try it in a spray attack. And sooner or later, they hit on one that's just very simple. So that's one issue. The other issue is the way the business is done now. Foreign entities specifically, I just saw a whole presentation on this from the FBI the other day, and some of the information was really staggering, but they have turned this into a business. They're harvesting credentials. Then it used to be, I would log in, I'd steal your credentials, I'd move on to the next thing, the next phase of the attack. People are becoming specialists. These people, they run a company that is just credential harvesting. So they're just stealing your passwords. That's all they're doing. Then they sell those to the person that's going to go in to try to exfiltrate your data. That person then sells those same credentials to the person that's going to hit you with the ransomware. That's 2 or 3 different corporations, as it were, that are all working together as one supply chain. They've really become much more organized. It's very scary for the small businesses and the large businesses and the government entities, in fact. But that's why complex passwords and changing them regularly is really becoming extra important, because those credential harvesting teams aren't telling the name and password the day they get it now. They're getting a list because it's not worth anything to someone on the dark web until they have 1,000 credentials or something like that. So if you're changing your passwords fast enough, by the time it gets sold to the next guy, he's got less time to get into your account. So that's one of the key things there. So let's go back to the human on the other end of the keyboard. And I'm sorry, I think we may be running a little bit long, but I just real quickly, we're all the human at the end of the keyboard. As I said, I used to sit in your seat, not my seat. And so how do you remember the password when it changes every 90 days and it's 16 characters long and there's uppercase, lowercase, numbers, symbols? The first thing I do is a trick that IT folks have been doing for years, which is try to retrain your brain to see certain special characters as letters. Instead of using an A, sometimes use an @ symbol. Instead of an H, a hash sign. An S, use this money symbol. Instead of a letter O, use the 0. And again, as I always say to people, there's no right or wrong, whatever your brain sees it as. Some people that I know use exclamation mark for I, other people use a 1 for an I. Whatever your brain can track, this is really a great way to do it. So I'm going to my next slide here, and you can see this is kind of an example of what I'm talking about. If you're changing your password on April 14th this year, don't use Spring 22 or April 22, because that's going to be in that rainbow table spray attack. Spring with the money signs better, but again, when you go to rainbow tables, it could be in there. I'd say use a phrase. April showers 22 is a great example of when I say use a phrase. Use something that your brain's going to associate with the time of year or with your life. But again, April showers 22, if it was a really distinct rainbow table they might have, I mean, that's a pretty extensive one, but it could be there. But if you bring this now in with that symbol change, that example there, April, where it's @ sign, capital P, capital R, capital I, capital L, money symbol, then all lowercase, and then 0414, because it was April 14th when you changed your password. That's an amazing password and something that I've trained my brain to think about, because I'm going to remember it was April showers. I'm going to remember in this example, now I change it up all the time as to where these clumps are, but I'm going to remember that I'm holding the shift key for the whole first section and then releasing the shift key. Or maybe you hold the shift key for just the first letter of the words in your phrases. Change it up to whatever works for you. And then the final thing, when someone first showed me this, use 0414, I thought, yeah, but if I don't use that password soon, I'm not going to remember what day I changed it. That's not going to work. So one of the tricks is go to your calendar on whatever machine you use regularly, or even on your phone. Add a calendar invite to yourself. Add in the thing on there. Don't make it password change. because then theoretically, if someone ever saw it, they'd know that had something to do with your password. Again, if that's your password, it's not going to do them much good anyway. But use ice cream, use haircut, use anything that means something that you'll remember. Okay, when I have to remember what my password is, I have to look for where my haircut appointment was. And there you go. And you can do that with even adding the time if you wanted to make it that sort of complexity, where you wanted to say 10:30 a.m. You could make it April showers 04141030 and put it in your calendar. And it's very easy for you to remember what the end of that password was. So again, I apologize for taking up a little bit more time, I think, than we were supposed to, but at that, I'll pass it over to John for just some top level stuff on some of the trends in network security.
Thanks, John. That was all very good information. I can't emphasize enough password complexity and changing your passwords. To go a tad further with that, on a very high level, all your passwords that you write are stored somehow, somewhere in an algorithm, because they have to know who you are. They're stored in a database somewhere. Historically, they have been safe. Now, with the new processors and new algorithms out there, old databases are now crackable. So if you have a password from, say, 5 years ago, and you're still using part of that password, your children's name or something like that, they will crack those databases. Those databases are stolen and sold, and then they'll crack them, and they'll get a list of email addresses, and they'll get a list of old passwords, and they'll start trying them. And if you're still using a piece of your password, that helps them a lot. So your password's no longer 16 characters, it's now just 8 characters, and they can be more easily cracked. So you'll always want to try to change your passwords to something completely different. And I know it's a pain, but it's the real way to be safe. For anybody on this call that's IT staff, if you're still using old ciphers in your routers and your doors to the internet, TLS is the code. 1.0, 1.1, 1.2, they're pretty much done. They're all crackable. We have shut all our old ciphers off. We've removed our ciphers, anything that is no longer secure. So that will help a lot. As moving on to multi-factor authentication, etc. If you're not doing multi-factor, especially for your staff, you really should be. That helps identify who they are and make sure you are the one person getting into the internet or getting into the office that's supposed to be. We don't even allow inside our offices Wi-Fi. If you hit our Wi-Fi, you're going straight to the internet. You can't hit any of our things from the inside, because I can't guarantee it. And it's the same way with multi-factor. When we do multi-factor, we really try to prove who that person is. The odds of your phone getting hacked at the same time as you're trying to log in is very slim. I don't know what the rules for banks are, but I would hope that you guys are using some type of multi-factor authentication. We've also recently changed the way we do antivirus. In the old days, when I started here, we didn't even have antivirus. I started here in 1999. We were a peer-to-peer network with admin rights, and we got hit with a virus. And they gave everybody an IT floppies, and we had to drive around the state to fix all the PCs. I came back to the current CIO then and said, we need antivirus, we need a domain, admin rights got to go, and can I build it? And he let me build it. And ever since then, I've been able to try to maintain the sanctity. I will never say we are completely secure, because there's no way I can guarantee that. But we have since went from an office with no antivirus to a standard antivirus like McAfee, Norton, to now we also have antivirus, and we also have behavioral antivirus. So it looks at the behavior of somebody on the internet or on our network, whether it be a person or a program, and it gets a baseline of everyone's computer, Everyone does things differently, but it gets a baseline of their actions or their signature, let's say. And when that signature moves out of the norm, it literally shuts that PC's network card down. It can't go anywhere. It can't do anything. That has been a big help to us. It's a little to manage and maintain in the beginning, but it really has helped us greatly with strange attacks and outbreaks. Because the outbreaks will start very small. They won't be big. They will just be minor things. There'll be somebody poking. And I have called John several times over the last couple of years where somebody knocking at our door, I'll say, and I'll see them, and they don't get in, and we drop the traffic. As well as that, your behavioral antivirus, I recommend, if you don't, it's been very helpful for us. Look at or review your DNS records and for DNS firewalls. If you don't have one, that's been a very, very big security piece for us. Not only do we have a firewall for the network side, we firewall DNS. That's how a lot of ransomware gets moving in the beginning. It changes that name to an IP, and then you're stuck. You can't use it anymore. And the DNS records will actually drop it. We encrypt everything at movement and at rest. So even if somebody does get in, they can't go anywhere. We're micro-segmenting the network. I have more firewalls as well on the outside as on the inside. Everything is firewalled off. So if you do get in, you can't go anywhere. We're even going down to the point of application level firewalls, again, which has been a lot of work, but it has really protected us in case somebody does get in. There's a reason why nobody builds castles anymore, because they're not effective. We went from having a very strong castle to having a castle that if somebody gets in, we are actually unsafe. If the bad guys get inside past my moat, they have free reign. We no longer have that. We still have castle walls, but all my halls and sanctuaries are now also protected. Because if the bad guy gets in, you got to be able to defend your citizens, so to speak. I know this is a lot. It's very high level, but there's so much you can go to and information you can get for this. I highly recommend anybody that's interested in this keeps going further. There's just, the trends change all the time. What is the tips I gave you today, tomorrow won't work. Lastly, I want to add for John's email piece, which is very good. Not only did we put external name on it, we made it a color. So when it comes across your email or on your phone, that you know it's an external email, not only by the word, but by the color. So it has worked out very, very, very well for us. So I really want to thank everybody, and I'll open it up to questions.
Thank you, John. Oh,
actually, we're gonna hold the questions until the end. So thank you so much, John. If you want to stop sharing your presentation, that would be great. Thank you very much. Okay, we are gonna kick it over back to Chris. Thanks.
Thank you, Anna. And guys, thank you for that presentation. And really, after hearing about the risks and best practices from your office, we want to give our attendees today an idea of what we should expect from your bank, or what you should expect from your bank to help protect your business. To kick us off, we're going to turn it over to Sheila Hoover, our Chief Information Security Officer. And Sheila is responsible for the information and cybersecurity programs at First Commonwealth Bank. Her career at First Commonwealth has spanned 36 years, and she maintains several certifications, including the Certified Information System Security Professional and Certified Information Security Manager certifications. She is also a member of the CISO Executive Network and InfraGuard, which is the public-private partnership between the U.S. businesses and the FBI. Welcome this morning, Sheila.
Thank you, Chris, and good morning, everyone. So here at First Commonwealth, the protection of your information is of utmost importance to us. And my goal today is to provide you with a high-level overview of the focus that we place on our information security program and controls. So referencing the slide, we have implemented programs and controls to ensure the confidentiality, integrity, and availability of information, which is also known as the Cia Triad. The Cia Triad is a simple yet comprehensive strategy for the evaluation of security procedures and tools, starting with confidentiality, which ensures that data or systems are accessed only by authenticated and authorized persons. So controls such as user IDs that we've talked about, passwords, multi-factor authentication are used to authenticate these users, and access to information is provided on a need-to-know basis. Integrity assures that the data or systems can be trusted. So it is very tightly integrated with confidentiality, as it ensures that data is edited only by authorized persons and remains in its original state when at rest. And data encryption is an example of a key process to ensure integrity. Availability ensures that data and information systems are available when needed. So hardware maintenance, software patching and upgrades, and network optimization all help to ensure availability. The Cia Triad is a guide for overall security policies, and it is a way of thinking, planning, and setting priorities. And it should be considered when developing or enhancing your information security programs. Next slide, please. As a regulated institution, we are required to abide by standards and controls. Our information security program and controls are aligned with the ISO standard for information security management and controls. And this standard is a framework of policies and procedures that includes legal, physical, and technical controls for information risk management processes. We also assess our program and controls using NIST's cybersecurity framework, which is a set of guidelines for mitigating cybersecurity risks. And that framework focuses on 5 key attributes: the identification of your systems, assets, data, and capabilities, the protection, ensure safeguards that are in place to ensure delivery of those services, the detection, so the detection or identification of potential cybersecurity events, responding to those potential cybersecurity events, and then recovering from those potential cybersecurity events. Now, both of those standards, the ISO standards and the NIST framework, are designed for all organizations and all industries. This is something that you can most definitely take a look at. Now, the FFIEC Cybersecurity Assessment Tool is another tool that we use to assess our program and controls. This tool was specifically developed to assist financial organizations in enhancing oversight and management of overall cybersecurity, identifying factors contributing to and determining an overall cybersecurity risk. Although this was a very brief overview of our cybersecurity program and controls, rest assured, we take extreme care to ensure that your information and data is protected. At First Commonwealth, we have made substantial investments in protecting our assets and have followed the guidance of agencies and standards that we discussed. However, we also need your assistance in keeping data protected. Following standard practices such as installing antivirus, patching your systems, updating your software, using multi-factor authentication, and the other items that were mentioned by Mr. Nestor really go a long way to ensuring that your systems are protected. Next slide, please. There are multiple resources available to assist you in your cybersecurity efforts. NIST has a small business cybersecurity corner, which you can reference, and they also have a cybersecurity framework site. Both of those sites have valuable information. The CISA has a small business site as well, which includes tips to improve cyber practices. They also have a Cyber Essentials site, which has a plethora of information and free tools for you. They also offer free cyber hygiene services for critical infrastructure organizations. The Center for Internet Security publishes what's called critical security controls, and I listed the link there. And these are prioritized cybersecurity best practices to improve cybersecurity defenses. One other thing that I did want to mention, there was a joint advisory that was released yesterday This was from the CISA, the CSA, the FBI, and a few other agencies. That was for, I'm going to read this, weak security controls and practices routinely exploited for initial access. It discusses the need for items such as access control, strong passwords, multi-factor authentication, endpoint detection and response. And that you can be accessed through the CISA website, just /newsroom if you want to take a look at that threat intelligence there. So again, this was a very high level overview of what we have. Thank you for your attention. I'm going to turn this back now to Chris.
Thanks, Sheila. I really appreciate it. Next up, we're going to kick it over to James Thompson, who heads up our risk management team within our insurance division. James has been the commercial property casualty, has been in the commercial property casualty business since 2008. He specializes in commercial real estate, manufacturing, and workers' compensation. James also manages a team of insurance advisors throughout the First Commonwealth footprint. So, James, can you let us know how insurance agencies help mitigate the cybersecurity risk?
Yeah, thanks, Chris. So, agencies at large, not necessarily just the First Commonwealth Insurance Agency, can use insurance tactics to help mitigate risk on basically two fronts, right? So you got the first front, which is the insurance policies, and those are policies in place that respond to a cyber event, whether it's a breach or what have you. That is where you go for coverage to respond on a loss. The other side is the risk management practices that the business uses to better understand the risk and to better put it in place in their own kind of business operations. So let's take the first part, and that is the insurance policies. So insuring agreements are typically laid out in 5 forms when it comes to buying cyber insurance. One is the cost of breach. So you can buy coverage for the cost of breach expense that you may incur in the event of a cyber risk attack. Part 2, cyber extortion coverage. It's pretty self-explanatory. Part 3, cyber crime coverage, which is fraud-based crimes. Part 4 is business interruption, how this cyber event may have affected the flow of capital into your business. And part 5, the cost or expense you incur on that data recovery. So there's 5 insuring forms on that, which covers kind of the part 1 of the mitigation tactic. And then part 2 is just any good, risk mitigation or risk management practice falls in, simple stuff that you can do up front as a business. Does your company have a cyber planning guide? Does it know where to go in the event of a cyber event? What are the newsletters and communications that you're sending out to your employees, maybe to your clients, to make them aware of what's happening in that cyberspace? Simple stuff, newsletters, communications, just what's happening in the space, right? Cyber risk scorecards are available from any good agency. That benchmarks where your business may have exposures that you are aware of or that you are not aware of, how you can improve on those benchmarks, or maybe how you need to manage it a little bit differently. Lastly, or I guess second to last, employee training. What are you providing your folks to make them aware, hey, look, your password may be weak. This is how you need to approach incoming possible phishing emails. How can you be aware of that? And fifth and foremost, a list of your good partners and vendors. What are you using for your cloud-based services? Does it align with how your business aligns? Is it the right fit for you? How are you managing your internal IT and infrastructure? So again, that's how any good agency will help you mitigate risk from an insurance policy side and then from a risk management side. Thanks, Chris.
Thanks, James. Fantastic information. I really appreciate it. Next up, we're going to go to Kate Nelson from our Treasury Management team, who's going to speak to other risks facing small businesses in addition to those that are cyber related. Kate's been with First Commonwealth since 2000 and has been a tremendous member of the Treasury Management team for about 12 years. As a TM officer, Kate is responsible for the depository and electronic banking needs for any of the bank's business customers in the central and northern Ohio regions, including but not limited to counties, municipalities, school districts, and sewer and water authorities. So Kate, educate us on other frauds that are prevalent today and the impact small business owners may be facing as a result.
Thanks, Chris. Did you know that 74% of businesses experience attempted and/or actual payments fraud? Even in an industry where business clients are moving more and more transactions to electronic payments, check fraud continues to be number one at 35% and is one of the easiest forms of fraud for criminals. The most common forms of check fraud include check washing to alter the payee name or dollar amount, to criminals purchasing check stock and creating fake checks on a business account. Think of all the checks that are sent in the mail on a daily basis. It takes one check to be stolen, and your routing number and account number could be compromised. For example, we just had a business client that had a check stolen from the mail, which resulted in a fraudster purchasing check stock from an office supply store and creating numerous fraudulent items. The fraudster would then go around to various check cashing facilities and cash the fake checks. The business had 15 checks clear the account, totaling a little over $22,000 before they knew what happened. Businesses tend to utilize wires and ACH as quick payment methods and aren't too far behind check fraud, coming in at 21% and 18%. When it comes to processing wires and ACH transactions, business clients need to be a little more diligent, making sure you know who the vendor is, verifying all pertinent information like routing number and account number prior to submitting any electronic payments. Fraudulent electronic payments normally post to an account and are immediately transferred or withdrawn by criminals. We had a business client that had multiple construction projects going on, and one of the vendors requested payment via wire. The client spoke to the vendor and advised them to email over the wire instructions. Client received and proceeded to process a $1.2 million wire to the vendor. The next day, that vendor contacted the client stating they never received the funds and provided wiring instructions again. As the client was reviewing the wire instructions, they noticed that the routing number and account number didn't match the first set of instructions. The hacker had intercepted the first email and altered the bank name, routing number, and account number, resulting in that business client sending funds to the incorrect account. ACH fraud is increasing more and more. We had a business client that would balance their account on a monthly basis and never really check the account activity on a daily basis. During month-end balancing, that business client realized that there were 8 ACH debit transactions totaling a little over $18,000 to vendors that he never authorized to debit from the account. The fraudster had obtained the business client's routing number and account number, called multiple credit card companies, and had their bills paid via ACH. Next slide, Anna, please. 39% of businesses have potential losses greater than 100,000, while an additional 16% have potential losses between 25,000 and 100,000. In the 3 scenarios that we just reviewed, between those 3 business entities, the potential loss was close to $1.24 million. Next slide, please. Small businesses are 4 times more likely to have check and payment tampering fraud than large organizations. Fraudsters know that more than likely the larger entities are going to have fraud protection services, so they target smaller business clients. Next slide, please, Anna. Some of the ways that business clients can protect their accounts from fraud are utilizing some check fraud capability or fraud capabilities such as check positive pay, ACH filters, and ACH blocks. Utilizing check positive pay will provide businesses enhanced security for in-clearing checks. Businesses will have the capability to upload an issued check file to their financial institution, and then the positive pay system will compare checks presented for payment to the client's issued check file. The system will validate that the paying name, dollar amount, and check number all match. If one of those fields does not match, the positive pay system will flag the item as an exception, providing the business the capability to review and determine whether to pay or return. ACH Filters is another fraud protection service that allows business clients to create an authorized vendor list, which vendors who are on the filter list will be allowed to debit the business client's account. If a vendor tries to debit the account that is not included on that filter list, It will be flagged as an exception item, and the business will be able to then review that ACH debit transaction and determine whether to pay or return that specific item. And then the last option is ACH Block, and it does what it sounds like. It will put a full block on all ACH debit transactions on a specific account, returning any ACH that tries to post to the account. So these are just a couple of fraud features that businesses could use to protect their accounts from any sort of check fraud. Thank you, and I will turn it over to Chris for questions.
Thank you, Kate. I really appreciate that, and I appreciate you presenting to us and sharing with us about Positive Pay and ACH filters and ACH Block. And I've personally seen those in action, and they're really good at protecting businesses and really helping thwart fraud. As is James, your solution of having some risk policies in place to really help you manage any risks associated with cyber security fraud. So, and at this point, I'm going to turn it back to you to set us up for some questions as we kind of approach the 9 o'clock hour.
Great. So thank you very much. And again, thank you for all of our speakers and for everybody who has been keeping the conversation going through chat. So yeah, we are very close to 9. However, we are going to hang around and certainly if there are any pressing questions, feel free to throw them in the chat. You also have the Q&A available. Just again, one more reminder, you will get a follow-up email from us with a link to the recording, the presentation, all of the great resources, and very importantly, Chris's contact information. So if you do need to hop off, you have a hard stop at 9, as we call it, and you have a question, you just don't have time. Again, Chris is really looking forward to hearing from you. With that being said, though, Chris, over to you.
Awesome. Thank you, Anna. And the first question came to us through the chat, and it's from Ann Bowers. John Affronti, I'm going to pass this to you. And it's basically, is there a password saver app that you would recommend? Ann goes on to talk about her bookkeeping clients really struggle with remembering all their passwords, and she's really trying to find a good solution to recommend to them.
Unfortunately, I myself do not use one. I know there are some people in my agency that do use them. I've been told, I of course am a skeptic at anything that puts all of your passwords into one hackable item, but I have been told that I am paranoid and that they are very good. So the bottom line is, if that's going to be what allows you to make a very complex password that you force yourself to change regularly, I would absolutely say if that's the key, the likelihood of them getting into one of those apps, as long as it's a highly recommended app, is much lower than the likelihood of them getting into your account if you use Spring 2022 as your password. So yeah, unfortunately I don't. John, Nestor, or JP, do either of you know much about those?
No, I do not use them. I just, that's something I don't do. I remember all my passwords.
I actually use a password manager myself and stuff. So I'll give you my personal opinion because there's a lot of good ones out there. I'd say get one that is pretty reputable and stuff. I use Dashlane. I mean, it's a pay service and stuff, but it seamlessly goes between, and I got it from my wife because she uses it, because you can get the password off your iPhone or your MacBook. Also, it also has a family plan, so all my kids use it. So it does cost, I think, $99 a year, and there might be other free ones out there, but I like it. It comes with a VPN. If anyone travels a lot, I use the VPN a lot when you're going on public Wi-Fi's and stuff. But I just use that one because my wife's comfortable with it and stuff, and I use it also. And as long as you keep the initial password complex, it'll come up with very complex, 16, 20 digits, random characters out there that you can access. Like say on my MacBook, it automatically puts it in. If you're someplace else, you can pull it up on your mobile device and get it that way. But that's just my personal opinion. Find one that you're comfortable with.
Sheila, I saw you nod your head as well. And as our Chief Information Security Officer, I'm sure you have some opinions on this too.
I don't use a password manager, and we do not use them at First Commonwealth either. So I'm just not comfortable with them.
Right. So the degree of, as kind of Special Agent McDonald said, obviously, you got to be careful, find a reputable company that's out there. I too use Dash Lane myself to help secure my passwords. And I struggle at times trying to keep everything. And it's cool because you can create that password to get into the app. And you can use that unique password that John was talking about with all the special characters so that they can't uncover it. All right, so let's go to the second question. Here it is. So what's the #1 mistake you see business owners do over and over again that relates to cybersecurity? And what's your go-to recommendation to resolve it? So this is probably a good question for everyone. Special Agent McDonald, do you want to try to tackle that first?
What was the question again? Sorry.
Oh, okay. Yep. It's what's the #1 mistake you see business owners do over and over again that relates to cybersecurity, and what's your recommendation to resolve it?
I think, go back to the initial thing. I mean, I unfortunately, stuff you do, pre-planning and stuff, and preparing and being ready for any type of emergency is stuff that maybe they make a mistake and stuff in there, because when we see it, a crime has already been committed and we're trying to recreate it and stuff. So, if they didn't have a good business continuity plan or disaster recovery plan for how to get data back or storing it off site, or they didn't have logs turned on, it's kind of hard to do that after the fact and stuff. So not planning for all types of situations and scenarios, and ensuring your employees are educated on how to recognize spam emails, or if you think it's coming from Chris Adams, oh, it came from Chris, I got to respond to it. Stuff just reinforcing stuff and stuff you do beforehand is really what you need to do to try to be prepared for any emergencies.
Well, and I think Special Agent McDonald, we see it. I think you made it this point in your presentation. We see it time and time again. In today's society, we're all trying to do more work with less, and we're running around fast. And as you do that, and you're not really pausing to take attention to detail, like the Kate, I think the email that you said, where someone broke into an email chain, changed the email, and we don't even think to go back and look at the people on that email chain, or really think that someone would break into an email and try to compromise data. And it just, I think at times maybe slowing down with what we're doing and really checking to make sure that we're, protecting ourselves, our clients, and the like. James, next up for you. So someone asked, do you recommend cyber insurance? And if so, what questions would a business need to ask their insurance agent?
So I definitely recommend cyber insurance. In fact, if you're a business and you have an insurance policy, most insurance carriers actually include a small limit of cyber coverage, right? Because they want to know that they've offered it, and they want to feel good about offering it, and they want to put it on the business owner to understand that, hey, they have it. It's their due diligence to visit it. So I guess to answer the question, yes, I recommend it. Most likely, your business already has it. I would recommend understanding what the limit is that you have and what the limit is that you need, right? To tailor it to your operations. Certain businesses might have a larger cyber expense coverage. Hey, my business is, I may only facilitate information for 500 clients. So my cyber expense limit might not be as large as the business that facilitates information for 5,000 clients, right? Understand your limits, visit it, talk to your agent, make sure that you line up and everything is aligned in the event of a claim, and then also go back to the practices, policy and procedure. Where's the awareness coming from? How do you kind of build into your employees to make them understand where exposures can affect the business? Good question.
Thank you, James. All right, let's go over to Sheila. So Sheila, someone asked, we heard a lot of really good ideas today. Are there other basic recommendations for PC and devices and or network security that you'd be willing to share?
Going back to what was said during this webinar, keys are, the key controls. You look at your passwords, you look at antivirus or endpoint protection of some sort on there. You look at any type of software updates. Keeping your products up to date, current with security patches is really important. A lot of the advisories from the threat intelligence that's published, it's the vulnerabilities that are discovered there are patches available, however, people don't install them, and as a result, they become victims of attacks or cyber attacks.
And Sheila, do you want to expand on that? Because someone had asked too, how is FCB ensuring that employees do not become victims of phishing emails, which kind of tags on to what you were just talking about?
Yes. So here at First Commonwealth, in addition to automated tools that we have in place to block these types of emails from even entering our email system, we have implemented an employee security awareness program that consists of both online training and weekly testing of our employees. Given that the majority of data breaches can be attributed to the end user becoming a victim to a phishing email, we have placed high importance on testing and educating our employees.
It's fantastic. And I know I personally, Sheila, participate those, and we do sample phishing emails that make you think as you're reading it. And obviously we can click that, hey, we believe this is a phishing email, and it's something that that's coming from your department to really help us be more aware. So, okay, next up, Kate, I have one for you. It looks like if ACH fraud happens on my account, how long will it take to recoup the money?
So that all depends on essentially the type of fraud and the severity of the fraud. We have seen fraud claims take anywhere from a couple of days to a couple of weeks to a couple of months. We've actually seen a fraud case take over a year before our client was able to recoup their money. So it all depends on the type of fraud and the severity.
Wow. So that's kind of unsettling, isn't it? Which really makes you think about that pause of pay and ACH filters and ACH block to help protect you.
Yep.
Let's see here. I had a question, Kate. I think this might be for you. Are business clients covered by Reg E?
Ooh,
Kate or
is that Sheila?
Sheila, do you know?
I do not know. That would be a compliance.
That's one we'll have to take away and get back to the viewer. So good question. You stumped the Swami here. Let's see here. I want to get John Nestor involved. So John, I see you sitting there all in the room, buddy. We got to get you into this here, before everyone joins in those chairs. So John, as we kind of look to wrap up today, is there any additional tips or any additional advice that you would recommend to the audience, to really help them solidify themselves against cyber attacks and the like?
It's already been said, but I have it written down here several times. Is keep your equipment patched and current. That is the absolute #1 thing to do. As it was stated, most things are already addressed in the patches, especially the 0-day patches. Pay attention, because as soon as they announce them, they're actually telling everybody in the world they're out there. So you got to patch yourself for them. But keeping your PC patched, everything current, your antivirus patched and current is the app, in my opinion, the absolute #1 thing to do for your employees and your personal stuff.
That's great. I really appreciate it. And geez, Anna, as I don't have any more questions, but as I step away and look to turn it back to you, some of the notes that I took today from our presenters is, one, make sure you have a disaster recovery plan, which is really important. Two, always be cautious with emails, even if you think it's from someone you know, it may not actually be. Three, complexities of passwords is still crucial. Retrain your brain to use special characters and create passwords that aren't easily to be guessed. Using new passwords, while tedious, can be very important. The fifth thing I had was multi-factor authentication is a great process to protect from attacks. And lastly, I know we talked about solutions such as Positive Pay, ACH Filter, ACH Block. We also talked about cyber security insurance as well. So know that there are solutions out there to really help not only protect you, but also manage the risk. And I just want to thank you this morning. Thanks to everyone that joined us. Thank you to all of our panelists. So Special Agent McDonald and the Johns, John Affronti, John Nestor. Thank you, Kate Nelson. Thank you, James Thompson, and thank you to Sheila Hoover as well. This has been fantastic this morning. So Anna, back to you.
Great. Thank you so much, Chris. Again, I'm going to add my thank you for everybody, those attending, those presenting today. One more time, Chris Adams is your guy. As you can tell, he is very passionate about protecting the businesses that are so vital to our communities. So instead of giving you 8 people to remember who to contact, we're just going to send you to Chris. Again, his contact information will be in the email. It is on the screen. We cannot thank everybody enough today. Have a wonderful, wonderful rest of your day. And thanks again.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
See ya.
See ya.
Thanks, everybody.